Welcome to Restless Killers and Mysteries with Roger Heilig, your go-to podcast for uncovering the shocking events and secrets that have influenced our world. A.M. Wolf's book Beyond the Grassy Knoll, How JFK's Death Changed American Society Forever vividly depicts this occurrence. Wolf is now available through Amazon and Audible. So grab your favorite beverage, settle in, and let's go deep into some volcanic drama, because today's episode is all about the top 10 volcano eruptions that changed the modern world. Volcanoes are now nature's greatest spectacle. They are explosive, unpredictable, and completely intriguing. But they are more than just fiery mountains. Their eruptions have caused dramatic transformations that have reverberated throughout history. These volcanic outbursts, which range from cataclysmic destruction to unexpected agricultural boons, serve as compelling reminders of our planet's might and mystery. Consider this, a world-changing explosion so powerful that it can be heard halfway around the world. Consider an eruption that spreads ash across broad areas, lowering temperatures and causing crop failures. It's more than simply rocks and lava. It's also about human history, culture, and survival. Volcanic eruptions, whether they hinder air traffic or preserve old towns in ash, are the world's relentless killers. So fasten your seatbelts and join us on a voyage through 10 explosive stories of how volcanoes have not only impacted landscapes, but also irrevocably affected human history. From the legendary Mount Vesuvius to the current chaos wreaked by Eyjafjallajökull, each story demonstrates the powerful force of nature. Ready to start? Let's start with our first story. Krakatoa, 1883. A name synonymous with cataclysmic devastation and global influence. Ah, Krakatoa? Just speaking, the term may cause you to feel a slight quake underfoot. In 1883, this Indonesian volcano not only blew its top, but also the world's collective consciousness. Imagine waking up in August expecting just another typical day, only to be greeted by the sound of an explosion that can be heard almost 3,000 miles away. This was no ordinary eruption. It was a symphony of destruction that shook the earth and human cultures to their foundations. First, let's talk about dynamite. The eruption of Krakatoa is frequently compared to the devastating force of numerous atomic bombs detonating at once. We're talking about a volcanic eruption that sent ash 50 miles into the sky, triggered tsunamis over 120 feet tall, and darkened skies half a world distant. The air was filled not just with ash, but also with doubt, terror, and amazement. Why should you and I be concerned about a distant volcano that erupted more than a century ago? Krakatoa, my dear listener, did something very magical. It transformed the weather. For years, the mountains of ash that were launched into the skies did not simply evaporate. They mixed with the Earth's climate, lowering global temperatures and generating weird, brilliant sunsets that painters and poets around the world captured. It's as if Mother Nature decided she needed a new color scheme, and the effects were both stunning and disturbing. But wait, there's more. What is the socio-economic impact? They were huge. The eruptions displaced tens of thousands of people, damaged local economies that rely on agricultural stability, and caused towns throughout the Indian Ocean to reconsider their catastrophe preparedness. So, the next time you hear someone say, "What's the big deal about a little ash?" just direct them to Krakatoa. This event had a significant cultural impact in multiple ways. The news of Krakatoa spread quickly thanks to the worldwide telegraph network that had begun to bring the world closer together. For the first time, individuals in London, New York, and Sydney learnt about the eruption practically immediately. This was, in essence, an early example of globalized news, a phenomenon that is today commonplace but was groundbreaking at the time. Let us not forget the legends. Oh yeah, Krakatoa became a myth, a warning story spoken all across the world. It was immortalized in songs, novels, and even early films, permeating our collective psyche and inspiring everlasting interest. Even the term Krakatoan has entered our vernacular to designate something explosively powerful. One cannot discuss Krakatoa without mentioning its scientific significance. The eruption and its aftermath served as case studies for advances in geology and climate science. Scholars sifted over the data, desperate to learn how such raw force might be harnessed, predicted, or, at the absolute least, endured. If you've ever marveled at a finely precise volcanic forecast, remember that it owes something to this titanic event. So there it is, Krakatoa's legacy. It was more than just an eruption. It was a historical event that sent shockwaves of ash, legend, and ingenuity. Krakatoa has something for everyone. Whether you're a weather enthusiast, a history buff, or simply someone who enjoys a good natural drama story. So, the next time you see a stunning sunset or hear the distant rumble of a volcano, remember Krakatoa. Its blazing message reverberates through time, reminding us of Earth's awe-inspiring, unwavering power. Let us travel back to 79 AD to the busy Roman city of Pompeii. Pompeii, located at the base of Mount Vesuvius, was a bustling center of culture, trade, and everyday Roman life. Little did its residents know that their lovely mountain neighbor was poised to erupt in one of history's most infamous and devastating volcanic explosions. Mount Vesuvius erupted with such intensity that it destroyed everything in its path. Within hours, Pompeii was covered under a thick layer of volcanic ash and pumice, effectively freezing the city in time. It's difficult to imagine the whole mayhem that must have ensued. A dark cloud towering, streets filled with ash, and vibrations rocking the very ground people stood on. So there it is, Krakatoa's legacy. It was more than just an eruption. It was a historical event that sent shockwaves of ash, legend, and ingenuity. Krakatoa has something for everyone. Whether you're a weather enthusiast, a history buff, or simply someone who enjoys a good natural drama story. So, the next time you see a stunning sunset or hear the distant rumble of a volcano, remember Krakatoa. Its blazing message reverberates through time, reminding us of Earth's awe-inspiring, unwavering power. Let us travel back to 79 AD to the busy Roman city of Pompeii. Pompeii, located at the base of Mount Vesuvius, was a bustling center of culture, trade, and everyday Roman life. Little did its residents know that their lovely mountain neighbor was poised to erupt in one of history's most infamous and devastating volcanic explosions. Mount Vesuvius erupted with such intensity that it destroyed everything in its path. Within hours, Pompeii was covered under a thick layer of volcanic ash and pumice, effectively freezing the city in time. It's difficult to imagine the whole mayhem that must have ensued. A dark cloud towering, streets filled with ash, and vibrations rocking the very ground people stood on. But here's where it gets interesting. While the inhabitants of Pompeii died in horrible circumstances, the layers of ash that buried the city eventually formed a time capsule. This unintentional preservation provided current archaeologists with a rare peek into Roman society, similar to a 2,000-year-old photograph. Pompeii is an extraordinary archaeological treasure trove, since its homes, shops, frescoes, and even graffiti have been almost completely preserved. The rediscovery of Pompeii in the 18th century proved to be a watershed moment for archaeology. The surviving neighborhoods, residences, and ordinary goods revealed stories of a prosperous culture before calamity struck. We learned about their diet from food scraps, their behaviors from household items, and even their style from preserved clothing. It was like dialing back into an ancient metropolis without having to imagine what life was like. It was all there, etched in stone and ashes. This catastrophe helped shape modern archaeology. Plaster casting techniques were developed, which involved filling cavities left by decayed remains with plaster to make frighteningly lifelike molds of Pompeii's population in their dying moments. These casts create a close and emotional connection to the distant past, reminding us of the humanity that once resided on those ancient streets. Beyond its archaeological relevance, the Mount Vesuvius explosion had a significant cultural impact. The narrative of Pompeii has captivated and inspired several works of literature, art, and film. From Bulwer Lytton's historical novel The Last Days of Pompeii to modern documentaries and films, the story of a city caught off guard by nature's fury has captured our imaginations. So, while Mount Vesuvius' explosion was terrible, the legacy it left behind has helped shape our perspective of ancient Rome. It reminds us of the power of nature, the transience of existence, and how history may be frozen in an instant, only to be revealed millennia later. That concludes the saga of Mount Vesuvius and Pompeii, a tale of disaster and discovery that permanently altered our perception of history and archaeology. Mount St. Helens, 1980. Oh, what a doozy! You may have heard of this prominent volcano in Washington state. It is the pinnacle of volcanic explosions in modern American history. On May 18, 1980, the mountain did not merely whisper or groan. It roared, shaking the ground, darkening the sky, and bending nature. The landscape was forever transformed by a tremendous explosion that blew the mountain's top off. Now, let's break it down. Prior to the eruption, Mount St. Helens was recognized for its symmetrical design, giving it the nickname Fujisan of America. However, the serene exterior concealed a ticking time bomb. Scientists have seen increased activity, minor earthquakes, and steam explosions, but they couldn't forecast the scale of what was to come. The eruption began with the greatest landslide ever recorded, followed by a lateral blast. Consider this, the entire north face of the mountain crumbling, unleashing a sideways explosion that mowed down everything in its path, encompassing around 230 square miles. Trees fell, waterways blocked, and the sky became pitch black with ash. You'd think all this destruction would be depressing, but it really ushered in a new era of volcanic science and emergency preparedness. This tragedy served as a real-life laboratory for volcanologists. They implemented new monitoring tools and modeling models, changing the way we predict and respond to volcanic eruptions. The eruption has long-term consequences, fundamentally altering policy and emergency management. The United States government increased volcanic monitoring, and new legislation was enacted to strengthen disaster preparation and response. The impact was not solely natural or technological, it was also societal. Communities were forced to adapt and recreate their lives from scratch, becoming more robust in the process. Mount St. Helens also left a significant mark on the terrain. The landscape recovery and biological succession have been amazing to see. Areas that were previously barren began to thrive, providing scientists with crucial insights into ecosystem recovery and resilience. So there it is. Mount St. Helens was more than just a massive explosion. It transformed science, policy, and public perception of natural disasters. Isn't it amazing how much impact one unruly mountain may have on multiple levels? Okay, let's go back to around 1600 BC. Imagine a world governed by legendary civilizations and fantastic legends. Drop yourself into the Aegean Sea, specifically around the island of Thera, often known as Santorini. Nestled in the heart of the Minoan society is a devastating catastrophe that will reverberate through history and mythology, potentially inspiring legends such as Atlantis. Consider a thriving Minoan society, alive with commerce, art, and culture. One day, the ground began to quake. The air smells bitter and sulfurous. Tremors gradually intensify into a thunderous roar from the earth. Thera's volcano explodes with such force that it destroys practically the entire island and sends gigantic tsunamis slamming into adjacent beaches. The explosion, 4 times as powerful as Krakatoa's eruption in 1883, sends massive volumes of volcanic ash into the atmosphere, darkening skies and altering weather for years. When this ash settles, it not only blankets distant country but also captures a glimpse of existence buried in an instant. This leads us to the Minoans. This explosion caused severe disruption to their great society. The tsunami destroys coastal Minoan settlements, while ash ruins crops and causes widespread disorder and sorrow. According to hydrogeological evidence, the eruption and ensuing damage signaled the start of the Minoan civilization's demise. Interestingly, this occurrence could be the origin of Plato's story of Atlantis. In his dialogues, Plato recalls a mighty island civilization that was lost to the sea in a single day and night. Thera's fall, with its suddenness and massive scale, is very similar to the Atlantis story, implying that the tale may represent a cultural memory of this volcanic catastrophe. What fascinates me about Thera's eruption is its direct archaeological legacy. Entire Minoan settlements, such as Akrotiri, were buried by volcanic ash, similar to Pompeii, and were virtually completely preserved. This enables current archaeologists to peek directly into the past, revealing vital information about ancient lives, art, and urban design. This occurrence has anthropological repercussions. The socio-political upheaval altered population centers and power relationships throughout the Aegean region. Some historians argue that the Minoans' weaker polity allowed for the growth of other ancient empires, such as the Mycenaeans, paving the way for future historical developments. As we travel through the echoes of past tragedies, Thera's eruption stands out not just for its catastrophic strength, but also for its profound and long-lasting impact on history and myth. It's a sobering reminder of nature's power to influence, demolish, and even inspire human societies, sometimes in ways we can't anticipate. In 2010, a tongue-twisting Icelandic volcano dubbed Eyjafjallajökull exploded onto the scene. Literally. If you are having trouble pronouncing that, you are not alone. Most people recall it as the Icelandic volcano that caused travel chaos. And chaos it was. Imagine you're packing your things for a European vacation or a vital work trip, and then, bam! Thousands of flights are grounded. Airports are jammed with disgruntled passengers because Eyjafjallajökull thought it was time to put on a big show. This eruption did not mess around. It emitted a massive ash cloud that swept across most of Europe, making the skies like something out of a post-apocalyptic film. Why was the ash cloud such a big deal? Volcanic ash is hardly the type of fairy dust you want in your aircraft engines. It is abrasive, melts at high temperatures, and has the ability to crash aircraft. So, when air traffic controllers became aware of the ash cloud, they took no chances and grounded roughly 100,000 aircraft over 6 days in April 2010. That's right, nearly 100,000. The economic impact was tremendous. The airline industry suffered losses of roughly $1.7 billion. Firms reliant on air freight were left in chaos, and millions of travelers were forced to book unexpected hotel stays and reschedule their travel plans. For a brief period, the contemporary world was reminded of how vulnerable it is to Mother Nature's whims. But everything wasn't doom and gloom. This volcanic hiccup also has some unforeseen benefits. For starters, it served as a crash lesson in understanding the interdependence of our global systems. People learned about geography and geology, and the eruption spawned numerous memes and viral videos. It also hastened the development of improved predictive models and monitoring systems for future air traffic management events. Eyjafjallajökull was a powerful force for Icelanders, but they took it in stride after all. Living on a volcanic hotspot means they're used to nature's dramatic outbursts. Additionally, it gathered a throng. Eyjafjallajökull quickly became the center of attention, attracting scientists, journalists, and curious tourists anxious to see what was causing all the fuss. The 2010 Eyjafjallajökull eruption served as a stark reminder that, despite technological advancements, humans are still vulnerable to the natural environment. It was a humbling experience that pushed us to adjust swiftly to an unforeseen catastrophe, demonstrating that even a little volcanic eruption may shake up the modern world in unexpected ways. Let's rewind the clock to 1815. We're in the Indonesian archipelago, and Mount Tambora is set to disrupt global weather patterns. Consider this, a beautiful mountain in the Sunda Islands, yet beneath its peaceful surface, molten rock is bubbling madly. Tambora reached its boiling point on April 10th, resulting in one of the bloodiest and most violent eruptions ever recorded. Mount Tambora crumbled rather than simply blowing up. The explosion was so powerful that it could be heard more than 1,200 kilometers away. That's like someone firing off fireworks in Los Angeles, and people in Denver hearing the bang. This cataclysmic event released approximately 38 cubic miles of pyroclastic debris into the atmosphere. That's a lot of garbage, filling 14 million Olympic-sized swimming pools. The immediate consequences were severe. Entire settlements were buried in minutes, and the eruption itself is thought to have killed approximately 10,000 people. But let's take a broader look at the aftermath, which proved to be far more sinister and long-lasting. The eruption emitted massive amounts of sulfur dioxide into the stratosphere. This gas quickly swept over the world, creating an aerosol veil that deflected sunlight and greatly reduced global temperatures. The year following the eruption, 1816, is known as the year without a summer. Summer was practically cancelled in North America and Europe. In June, snow fell in New England, while Europe had unrelenting rain and fatal frosts all year. Crops failed across continents, resulting in the deadliest famine of the 19th century. People were forced to take extreme measures because there was insufficient food. There have been reports of desperate Europeans eating straw and leaves to survive, as well as cannibalism in some locations. Now here's something fascinating. This volcanic winter had an impact on global art and literature. The miserable weather in Europe that summer kept Mary Shelley and her pals home, where she wrote Frankenstein. Meanwhile, Turner's painting Sunsets grew extraordinarily brilliant, affected by the red and orange hues of volcanic aerosols dispersing sunlight. Economically, the eruption exacerbated challenges because the Napoleonic Wars had recently concluded, and many provinces were already struggling. Food shortages resulted in price increases, producing social instability and triggering migration waves as people departed their communities in quest of better prospects. But it wasn't all sorrow and gloom. Some good improvements did emerge from the volcanic tragedy. Crop failures fueled agricultural innovation, resulting in advances such as crop rotation and improved irrigation systems. Mount Tambora's eruption had far-reaching consequences, changing not just the physical terrain but also the very fabric of nations and cultures worldwide. So, the next time you're enjoying a beautiful bright day, consider how even a distant mountain on a small island has the capacity to change the world. The 1815 eruption of Mount Tambora remains a heartbreaking reminder of nature's tremendous unpredictability and interconnection, influencing global climate change and the development of literary masterpieces alike. Mount Pinatubo. Even the name sounds impressive, doesn't it? Hold on to your hats, because we're going back to 1991, when an ordinary mountain in the Philippines decided it was time to show the world how powerful it might be. Imagine this. It's March 1991, and Mount Pinatubo, which has been dormant for nearly 600 years, begins to grumble. The native Ida people, who lived on the volcano's slopes, were the first to observe the warning signs: mild earthquakes and steam eruptions. The volcano was awake and ravenous. Fast forward to June 1991, and Mount Pinatubo is shouting rather than groaning. Scientists, who had been closely monitoring the situation, were racing against time. They delivered a timely warning, prompting the evacuation of tens of thousands of people. This prompt action likely saved many lives. The climax occurred on June 15th. Mount Pinatubo exploded in a massive explosion that sent ash plumes reaching 22 miles into the sky. For comparison, that is 3 times the cruise altitude of a commercial jet. The eruption released a massive 10 cubic kilometers of material, enough to bury Washington, D.C. under 35 feet of ash. However, the impact of Pinatubo's eruption went far beyond the Philippines. The ash cloud was so large that it began to circle the planet. This deadly cloud of sulfur dioxide limited the amount of sunlight reaching the Earth's surface, causing global temperatures to decline. Over the next 2 years, the globe cooled by around 1 degree Fahrenheit. It was as though nature's air conditioning system had gone into overdrive. This cooling had mixed results. It temporarily counteracted the apparent warming trend induced by human-generated greenhouse gases. However, it also caused shorter growing seasons and crop failures in many regions of the world, hurting food availability and costs. One particularly delightful story is how the explosion influenced sunsets. Sulfuric particles in the sky dispersed sunlight, resulting in bright, fiery sunsets that rivaled even the most creative painter's palette. People all throughout the world were able to enjoy the blazing skies, which served as a bright spot in an otherwise bleak situation. The aftermath of Pinatubo's explosion was not pleasant. Ashfall enveloped towns and cities, destroying roofs and causing extensive damage. Lahars, mudflows caused by heavy rains mixed with volcanic ash, became a long-term threat, changing the terrain over months and years. However, out of the pandemonium arose great advances in volcanology. The eruption afforded a unique opportunity for scientists to analyze a big event in real time, yielding insights that have enhanced volcanic monitoring and hazard preparedness globally. The predictive models established by researching Pinatubo's activities are currently used to forecast volcanic eruptions around the world. Furthermore, the Mount Pinatubo eruption served as an important case study in climate research. It demonstrated how major volcanic outbursts can affect worldwide weather patterns and climatic conditions. So, in a nutshell, Mount Pinatubo not only reminded us of nature's unpredictable force, but it also gave us essential lessons that continue to affect how we comprehend and respond to volcanic activity and its consequences for our world. It exemplifies human resilience and the never-ending quest for knowledge. And there you have it, the epic story of Mount Pinatubo, a volcano that not only reshaped a region but also left an everlasting impression on the entire world. The year 1783. Prepare to travel back in time to Iceland, where one of history's most infamous volcanic catastrophes was about to occur. We're talking about the massive eruption of Loki, a volcanic fissure system that runs like a scar across the Icelandic countryside. Brace yourselves, because this wasn't your typical fireworks display. The eruption began in June 1783 and lasted a terrifying 8 months. Consider this: 14 cubic kilometers of lava shot out, engulfing vast areas of land. We're talking about enough lava to fill 3.3 million Olympic-sized pools. But the drama wasn't limited to the lava flow. Oh no, Loki was an overachiever. It also emitted a lethal cocktail of volcanic gases into the atmosphere. This included sulfur dioxide, which was combined with water vapor to form a powerful sulfuric acid haze that spread far and wide. You may be wondering, sure, there was a big volcanic eruption in Iceland, but what does that have to do with the rest of the world? Well, let me take you on a mini world tour of Loki's aftermath. First, imagine Europe engulfed in a weird, impenetrable fog. This was not the romantic "let's take a stroll through the mist" fog. This was a nasty, smoggy atmosphere that obscured sunlight and painted the skies an eerie yellowish green. Perfect setting for a horror film, right? Crops failed, livestock died, and hunger broke out, severely hurting food supply throughout Europe. And the weather? It became just strange. Temperatures dropped during the winter in what became known as the Loki haze, resulting in extraordinary cold waves. Rivers, such as the Thames in London, froze over, a phenomenon unprecedented in living memory. People are skating on the river while others struggle to find food. It's like a cross between ice dancing and dystopia. But we're not only talking about Europe here. The situation in North America was not much better. The sulfurous cloud that lingered over the continent resulted in severe winters, impacting everything from agriculture to daily living. Indigenous societies, relying on seasonal rhythms, were confronted with an unpredictable and hostile environment. Even new settlers felt the pinch, wondering if they'd irritated Mother Nature. Loki's eruption had a significant impact on historical events as well as on the living. Some experts argue that the volcanic haze and subsequent famines contributed to the societal unrest that resulted in the French Revolution. Imagine a volcanic explosion in Iceland contributing to the demise of the French monarchy. Furthermore, the disruptions in trade and agriculture significantly transformed Europe's economic landscape, causing changes that would last for decades. Closer to home, Iceland had the most acute consequences. The eruption unleashed a constant flow of lava and noxious fumes, destroying much of the island's agricultural and cattle. It is estimated that the subsequent starvation and sickness killed roughly 1/4 of Iceland's population. The surrounding climate became so harsh that Icelanders referred to it as the mist hardships. Here's an interesting fact: Loki's environmental upheaval was not limited to land. The sulfuric smog also harmed aquatic life. Fish numbers in adjacent waterways dropped, and the changing chemical of ocean waters had long-term consequences for marine ecosystems. So why does Loki matter now? It was an important event that tested the limits of human survival and adaptation. The eruption provided as a sobering reminder of how interconnected our globe is, since a volcanic explosion in a distant corner of Iceland may send shockwaves across continents. It also emphasized the fragility of our food systems and the significance of catastrophe preparedness, lessons that are still vitally important in today's environment of increasing climate uncertainty. There you have it, the eruption of Loki in 1783, a volcanic event that not only shook Iceland, but the entire modern world. Remember that history has a strange way of repeating itself. So, the next time you hear about a volcano eruption halfway around the world, consider twice before dismissing it. You can experience the effects even in your own backyard. Mount Pelée, 1902. This was a volcanic eruption that actually rocked the earth, or at least the city of St. Pierre on the Caribbean island of Martinique. Consider this, it's a quiet morning on May 8, 1902. The birds chirp, the surf waves crash rhythmically, and people go about their regular lives. Little did they realize that Mount Pelée had other intentions. Mount Pelée erupted with an explosive power, sending pyroclastic flows, hot ash, gas, and volcanic rock hurtling downward at dangerous speeds. This deadly cloud moved quicker than anyone could run or even think of fleeing. St. Pierre, nicknamed the Paris of the Caribbean, was destroyed in minutes. Nearly 30,000 people died almost instantaneously, making it one of the most deadly volcanic disasters in human history. So what made this eruption renowned was not only its severity, but also its unpredictability. Scientists and residents had noticed warning signs, bursts of ash, sulfur odors, and even mild earthquakes, but the entire magnitude was not realized until it was far too late. This tragic chapter in volcanic history sparked a global rethinking of volcano monitoring practices. Before Pelée, volcanic eruptions were monitored in a crude manner, relying primarily on visual clues and basic geological observations. Following Pelée, the scientific community realized they needed to advance. The catastrophe prompted the creation of more advanced devices for monitoring seismic activity, gas emissions, and even earth deformation. The necessity for a standardized global network of monitoring stations became evident, and these advances saved many lives in following eruptions. Mount Pelée's eruption has left a twisted silver lining in that it has helped us better understand and anticipate volcanic activity. Many of the tools utilized today, from seismographs to satellite images, originated in the aftermath of this disaster. So, Mount Pelée's fiery anger in 1902 did more than just destroy a lovely city. It forever transformed how humanity coexists with these restless killers, resulting in better monitoring, smarter evacuation strategies, and eventually, saving lives in future volcanic catastrophes. It's not a horrible legacy to literally blow its top, don't you think? Thank you for watching Restless Killers and Mysteries with Roger Heilig. I hope you found our look at the top 10 volcanic eruptions that changed the modern world as fascinating as I did. From Krakatoa's impact to the haunting echoes of Mount Pelée, it's remarkable how these natural forces have shaped human history. Remember that information is the finest instrument for understanding and appreciating the world around us. Before we part ways, I'd want to thank our sponsor, Beyond the Grassy Knoll: How JFK's Death Changed American Society Forever by A.M. Wolfe. If you're interested in historical mysteries like I am, this book is a must-read. Available on Amazon and Audible, it is sure to pique your interest and provide new perspectives on one of America's most contentious events. So, dear listeners, remain curious, involved, and never stop studying the mysteries that surround us. Join me next time for another exciting episode of Restless Killers and Mysteries with Roger Heilig. Who knows what other chilling stories and mind-blowing facts we will discover. Until then, keep that sense of awe alive. Goodbye for now.